images in here. I'll bring these 3 rows in here instead. So I'm going to click the first one, hold shift, and click the last one. If you want to maybe to get rid of an image, you can hold command or control and just click that on and off. Or you can add some more images and click those in with command or control, holding those down and clicking at the same time. If you have any questions about that, you can always let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer that for you if I'm going a little bit too fast with that right now. So now that I've highlighted my images, again, I did that by going ahead and clicking the first image, holding shift and clicking the last image. Or if you want to select certain images, you can hold command or control if you're on a PC down at the same time as clicking, and that can highlight or unhighlight an image. Then from there, the last step, again, you see import is not available. I'm going to go ahead and check that top. And now I can go ahead and go through this step here. So don't get too quick to just go straight to import because it may go to the wrong spot. So after a while, after using Lightroom, hopefully it will start to recognize where it needs to go. Mine, I can tell already that it knows where to go. So that's a great thing. And it should start to understand where to do this. You might only have to do this a couple times and hopefully it will know where to go the next time. So now we are on to the destination, which is the most important part. So I can see up here that I'm in KL teaching. Sometimes you might be like, basically this destination up here and this destination at the bottom are the same thing. So if I click Macintosh HD, you'll see at the top that this is going to change. So it just changed to Macintosh HD. For me on an Apple computer, a Macintosh HD is the it's the hard drive on my computer. You might see your local disk if you're on a PC. We don't want that. So we don't want to store images on your computer because when we import them, you might get an error message that you can't find your images because they're not actually on your hard drive, but they're on your computer itself. That's a really big issue, especially if you're going to be going to McHenry Community College and taking more classes. And this often happens with students that have their own Adobe Information or Adobe Cloud at home, and then they bring their images or their catalog back to MCC, and they can't find their images, they can't locate it. So that means they weren't imported to the hard drive itself, they were imported to the computer hard drive. So you want to avoid that, and that's the biggest thing that you'll take away from this destination part. So I'll get to that in a second. So let's just say it already just formatted to go to my Macintosh HD, which we will change later. So this is something we'll change later. Right now, we'll go ahead and go through file handling. If you can't see the dropdown for file handling, you can just go ahead and click these arrows. Same thing over here. Anything you need to drop down, you can go ahead and click that arrow. So for file handling, make sure your build previews are standard. It's going to take a little bit longer to go ahead and build those previews, but it's just going to be better quality. And then don't import suspected duplicates. That's up to you if you want to keep that checked. I keep it checked until there's that time where I may need to import some photos that maybe got put into the wrong place. Then I'll uncheck that and bring those photos back in. But for the most part, I keep those checked because I like to see that I have images that are grayed out that I can't bring in because they're already imported. So then we go to file renaming. Make sure that you check rename files. So go ahead and check that. And then template should be date file name. So we don't need to actually add any custom text or anything. We're just going to keep it with the numbers that the SD card has. Make sure you have that date on top of it. So date file name is the right thing to check because that way you can reuse your SD card for 10 years from now and it will keep all of the dates from 2021 to 2031, 10 years later, but just with the same numbering system. So we want to keep the date file name there and add that date on top so that you can always reuse your images or more so reuse that file name and put those same file names back into your Lightroom catalog. But again, it's going to be different because it has a date. So make sure when you're doing file renaming, you're checking rename files and then the template date file name is perfect. And we're going to move on to the next part here. We can just skip over apply during import. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that down. And then destination is the really important part. So I'm going to go ahead and first we're going to check into subfolder. So go ahead and check that. For PC users, like for me on my Apple computer, it's worked out fine. But for PC users, you might find that it's creating like another extra folder. I would rather just take that and see an extra folder than to see a mess of things going into the wrong place. So we want to make sure, at least from my understanding, Justin also has a video about how to do this and he doesn't check into subfolder, but I check into subfolder because that way I'm just double checking and making sure that I have everything into a folder and all my images don't get dropped into some other place. So yeah, it might be an extra step, but I would rather again take the extra step just to be cautious. So I'm going to go ahead and check into subfolder, and then you want to organize by date. So this should be defaulted. Lightroom should already do this, but just make sure that's happening. And a lot of this again is also defaulted, like the build previews and all of that. Maybe not so much the file renaming, but sometimes Lightroom already has these things already set up for how users use them the most. So I'm going to make sure I check into subfolder, organize by date. Date format is what you want, but I just keep it the way that it already comes. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm going to go into my hard drive, which is KL Teaching. Sometimes I just like to close down anything that doesn't serve me here. So like this Macintosh HD, I don't really want to see that open. So I will just go ahead and hit that triangle and close it down. And I'll go ahead and select my hard drive. Once I click that, you can see like here's my Macintosh HD up there. If I click my KL Teaching hard drive, there it shows up right there. So I know I'm in my KL Teaching hard drive, or your external hard drive rather. And then all of this, you don't have to click. So we're gonna just move on here. This is basically just telling you all the folders that it's created so far or that it will create by date, which is great. I'm gonna actually go ahead and just click on the LR folder. So I know that it's not called the LR folder, but at the end you can see it's called LR. Go ahead and click that. This is the right folder you want to import into. There is also LR cat. Do not import into there because you'll just get doubles of your images and that's just going to take extra space. That's not the right way to do it. You want to make sure you're importing into your 2021 underscore photo underscore your last name underscore LR folder. So always make sure you're importing to that. All you do is highlight it and then you can go ahead and import. Now it's going to go ahead and import on this left side panel here, and it's going to take a while. It's going to build some previews. So just let it do its thing. At this point, I don't really like run any sort of browser or anything like that. I just let it do its thing and basically so that it can work at its um, best speed to kind of get things done. And already it was imported, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and just close this down for 1 second. You can keep yours open, but I just want to show you what that looks like and what just happened. So when I go back into my hard drive, I can go to the LR folder where we just imported into, and we said organize by date, or sorry, we said to go into a subfolder and then go ahead and organize that by date. And now you can see that I have a 2020 folder and I've got these different images in there. So that is the reason why we organize into subfolders by dates, because when we import them, they're going into these two different spaces here. So I'm going to close that down. I just wanted to let you see what that looks like. And also on top of that, like you'll always like every year that you add on to that 2021, which you'll probably see that more often. I don't have any photos in 2021, but like 2022, 2023, so on and so forth, you'll all see that right here. So all of your like original images will be in this space, and then your catalog itself will be here. So just so you know what that looks like. So going back here, um, basically I will go over your ratings and also I will also go over collections. So now we've imported our images and we're going to stay in library. So all your photographs, these are literally everything that you photographed. So eventually you'll have 200 plus images in there or so on and so forth, depending on how much photos you take. I've seen clients that have 10,000 images in there, um, things like that. So basically all your images will be there, and you can see them all here and eventually just build and build and build every time you import. But then if you go to previous import, these are just the images that I imported today. So I only have 12 images from today. So I hope you understand that all photographs obviously is going to show you all the images that you've ever imported into Lightroom. Previous import is just going to show you what you imported the day of, or the last time you imported rather. So the ways that you can go ahead and organize these, just quickly, if you want to rotate your images, there's these two panels here that can rotate your images. If you're not in this view, you might be in loop view. So there's grid and there's loop. So loop view is right here, and you can see your image larger. Grid is on the left to it. Another thing before I go into the organization part is if you go to the loop view, if you want to zoom into your image, you can just click the navigator. So if you don't see the navigator and you don't see your image, just bring that down. But you can go ahead and click in with your zoom, and I can zoom in on that, which sorry, I don't want to scare you with that. This like little caterpillar. So go ahead and zoom in, and then you can see the different image like up close and the different details here. Um, or you can go ahead, when you want to zoom out, you can just click this image over here. So you can't zoom out here, you can only zoom in the navigator. You can just click this image and it will zoom out. So let me pick a less uh, graphic image, I guess you could say. So if I go to my navigator, which if you can't see it, you just drop that down, and I'm going to zoom in. And then I can see really quickly all the details in my images. So this is a much better example. And I'm just dragging my mouse and kind of looking at what I want to see. When I'm ready to zoom out, I click over here on the image itself, then it pops out. So I'm going to go back to grid view. And again, there's 3 different ways you can rate your photos. There is the star ratings, which are right here. I could click that and I could turn them off. There is the flags to flag your image or to unflag it. You can click it again. There is also color labels right here. So I actually like to do this in the loop view. So I'm going to go over to the loop view here, and I'm going to pick that image. And basically with my ratings, I can go ahead for numbers, or the stars rather, I can click 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. There's 5 stars that are the max. And you can also hit 0 if you don't want to rate it. So basically the way that you want to think about this is if you go ahead and say you don't want to rate something, then maybe that's an image that you don't edit. So it's not necessarily that you don't want to like bring that into Lightroom. It's just there as like something that you could see and kind of go through. So really the way that you want to think about this is like if you're doing a event or something, you're really going and you're hashing through all the different images, like the outtakes that maybe didn't make it to the final cut. Which I think personally, I don't mind seeing those things. I don't mind importing a lot of photos so that I can kind of see them larger rather than seeing them on the little small screen on your camera. So that way you can go ahead and um, see it larger and see if it's really something that you like or you don't like. So I'm going to go ahead and skip these two, and I'm going to start rating. So the way that I rate with stars, 4s is like, 5s is love. So 4s is you want the image to stick around, maybe you'll come back to it. You definitely don't want to lose it. 5s is you for sure want to use that. Maybe you're really good at this and you just want to choose 5s, that's fine. I started with the ratings and I really like ratings, but I would recommend that you're doing at least 2. So 4s, like at least 2 different types of ratings in terms of the stars. So 4s and 5s so that you have more to work with. Because if you're just going to do 5 stars, you might as well just do flags. It's basically the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and rate these. And on one hand of my keyboard, I've got my hand on the right hand on the arrow key. So I'm really going forward. And then on the top uh, left side panel or on the top panel of my laptop, I'm using my numbers. So it's kind of like doing 2 things at once, and that way you can get things done a little bit faster. So I can move forward with my right arrow key with my right hand, and I can go ahead and rate with my left hand on my numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and rate this a 5, 4, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5. And then of course I've got the ones that I didn't rate. And this is just for an example. If I were going through like 100 photos, there would be a lot more in between there that you wouldn't see. That I'm just like kind of really taking my time and looking at images. And also be cutthroat about it. Like what are your best images that you want to stick around? And then there's also flags. So before I get to that, in the grid view, so to view like your filters, you'll have to go back to the grid view here. Once I do that, you should see